Before I start the program, we're actually going to kick off briefly with two members of our Chatham High School PTO who want to get a chance to introduce themselves to you and speak briefly about the opportunities here at the high school.
Hi, I'm Maria Alden. I'm one of the PTO presidents, along with Melissa Bailey, and we'll also be on the board next year. Welcome to Chatham High School.
Hi everyone. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we wanted to just give you a little bit of a welcome from the PTO. As a parent, we've been sitting where you are, and so if this is your first time here with us, don't worry. The transition between CMS and the high school is done beautifully, it's done smoothly, and so it will go great. Don't worry. Everybody take a deep breath. We wanted to talk about some of our opportunities. We have a very full and robust PTO. We run a fashion show every year that is our biggest fundraiser of the year, but we have additional committees and board positions that we're always looking to fill.
And we have opportunities for the class of 28. So if you're interested, please reach out. In the next few weeks, we'll be putting things together for next year. We would love to have the help. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome. So as I mentioned, this is our orientation presentation. And my first question I have for in the room is, how many is your first child coming to Chatham High School? So the vast majority of you, great. And how many think that your child is ready to come to high school? Well, I'll assure you that they are. And I hope I can share some insight about that tonight between what we talk about the transition to high school. Tonight we're also going to have a couple panelists speak briefly to you. Excuse me. Two of our grade 9 students who went through this transition will be speaking, and we also have a parent of one of our students who will be speaking tonight as well. So first, just to introduce everybody, my name is Doug Walker. I'm the principal here at the high school. I have two assistant principals here with me tonight, Connor Henderson and Lori Gironda. We also have a fourth administrative member, which is Darren Dioconzo, who is our athletic director, who is at a field right now. Athletic directors pretty much work two full-time jobs. They're here all day, and then the second part of their job starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they're at games. But he runs all of our athletic programs. So the three of us, just to give you a little bit of a background on us, we have a lot of longevity here at Chatham High School as well as in the field. So Lori and I have, well, we'll say, over 20 years of experience in education. If I get too specific, Lori gets mad at me for being too specific about how long. But we have about 20 years, over 20 years, and Lori started here as a biology teacher here at the high school for a number of years, served as a dean of students and assistant principal. Connor started here as a teacher in our video and technology department about 13 years ago, also served as a dean of students and an assistant principal. And this is my 12th year here at Chatham High School, 10 years as assistant principal, and the last 2 years as principal. Prior to that, I taught, and I was also a technology coordinator and instructional supervisor. So we have some really nice longevity here in the district, a lot of wisdom. We have backgrounds in many aspects of high school. Connor was a coach, was a college athlete and a high school athlete. I was a college athlete and a high school athlete. Lori was a musician and a college band musician. So we have like a lot of pieces to the puzzle, which hopefully that we find helpful in terms of relating to different aspects of our programs. So tonight's presentation is going to have a few components. We're going to go over what is a day like in Chatham High School. What can you expect? How does our schedule work? What's lunch? What can you do during lunch? What are the types of resources available, the supports available, talk about the activities, talk about a lot of different ways for kids to get involved in the school, and try to answer as many questions as we can about what you can expect. Today, we had a busy day today. We started off with state testing in the morning, and then this afternoon, the 8th graders came here. So they were bused over here in 2 different groups at around 12 o'clock. When they arrived, we had them go on tours of the building with our upperclassmen students, our LINKS leaders, and they took them in groups of 10 around the school so they can get to see the school in operation with students in the building, in classrooms, and they brought them around, and then we brought them back here, and we did a version of this presentation with them. Did they tell you about that? No? Yes and no, I'm sure. And what we shared with them, it's the same thing I'm going to share with you now. There is a lot of information in here, and we're still a few months away from actually starting here. So everything that we go over tonight will be shared with you. It's all being recorded as well, so there'll be a video of this, and then the slides will be shared. What I also explained to the students is that one of the first things that we do for them at the beginning of school is the first day of school at the high school is a delayed opening for the entire school except for grade 9. Grade 9 comes in at regular time, which is 8:20 here at the high school. And they start off in a classroom, they're assigned a classroom, and they'll be in there with our links leaders, which are students, and there'll be a teacher in there. And that's a chance for them to ask some questions and maybe things they wouldn't want to ask us and just start to get comfortable. If they don't talk, the links leaders will get them talking. And then they move down here for a class meeting where we go over a lot of the things that they really, maybe are anxious about on the first day, like how, the bells, passing time, where to go for lunch, what you can do, just so that they can start the day feeling, ready to go. And then at 10:20, at 9:50, the rest of the school will come in. So that's part of our process. So even tonight, many of the things that we'll talk about, it's designed to give you an idea, so there's no speculation about what to expect, but you may not remember every aspect of it. We will be sending out a lot of information once we get to the summer related to school opening and our schedule. We also have other publications that you can look to for certain policies and things like that. So don't feel overwhelmed by remembering everything. But high school, some of you said, maybe my child's ready. Yes, they're ready. Some are ready to go. Some already know probably where they want to go to college and what they want to do, and some of them are probably still forgetting to hand in homework, right? It's a combination of the two. But it really is a special place, and this school in particular, I feel, is a really special place, and it's really a chance for students to really start to become independent, really start to develop self-advocacy, and start to explore their interests. Back in January, if you were at my presentation for curriculum and our curriculum night, we talked about the courses and the levels of courses, and we spent a lot of time on the electives and the different options that students can pursue. So beyond the core academics, which will be part of your child's schedule, there's really a lot of opportunities to explore other areas, to take chances, to try a course of something I think I'm interested in. Many of our electives are semester classes. They have sequences, but they're semesters, and that's really by design, so that you can get a chance to try something, see if it's something you want to do, and not have to have such a large investment in persisting in it. So it's an opportunity to explore interests academically. There's an incredible amount of opportunities outside of academics, and if you only spend your time in high school only focused on academics, you're missing out on a lot. So there are over 70 clubs and activities, there's 36 athletic teams, there is a thriving performing arts program, there's community service opportunities, there's so many ways to kind of explore and learn, and during that process, and we watch it every year as they come in as freshmen, and now in about 26 days we'll be graduating a class of seniors that I just started writing my speech for. It's just amazing to watch how much they mature, grow, develop, and when they ready to leave here, they are very, very prepared for where they're going. The #1 feedback that we receive every year from alumni that come back, across the board, for 12 years I've been here, and I know it was preceded me, is that they always tell us wherever they go after they leave here, they always feel like they're more prepared than the peers that they're with in these colleges or schools, that they hear the feedback from professors, they hear that, they can see it in terms of how they're coping and managing the workload and the rigor of what they have to do, that they always feel like they were prepared really well. So we do a good job getting there, but it's definitely a team effort that we all work together to do. So what I wanted to do is just start off with a few things that I'm labeling principal's advice. This is just some things that I look at and say, hey, these are some really good things to consider. I say this as an educator over 20 years, many years working with teenagers, but also as a parent myself of a high school child and middle school child. I have 2 boys. And so these are just some tips, some things that I thought would be helpful to consider. So one of the things that I want to talk about is that all students are here to learn. Our goal is learning. Our goal is achievement and learning and to be prepared for what comes next. And with that learning, it's not just content. There's skills that are developed here, and in my opinion, it's the skills that they develop that become the most transferable when they leave high school. It's not so much remembering how to apply the Pythagorean theorem as it is how to think critically, how to communicate effectively, how to problem solve, how to work collaboratively with their peers. And so in our classes, there's a lot of time spent on those skill developments, and those are not always measured in grades sometimes. So sometimes even where you land with a grade or the GPA or a final grade isn't always the full picture of what you gained when you're here. But that is transferable when they leave here. And that is known by many of the post-secondary institutions that recruit from Chatham High School. And it's why, if you watch our report of graduates, which I delivered on Monday night to the Board of Ed meeting, that we have students with a range of GPAs and a range of test scores all moving on to really great options. And it's because they're able to find success there because of these skills. But with these skills and this growth and this learning requires setback. It requires some level of failure. You can't just achieve all the time. You have to have some setbacks in order to overcome them. And so as parents, as teachers, as counselors, administrators, we're always working with students to be able to cope with those setbacks at times. Once in a while, there might be not the grade that you're looking for or not the outcome that you want. And we work together to help them see that as an opportunity to move forward and helping students learn that these are little blips in a long period of time really goes a long way. So it's one of the goals that we work on. As parents, I always recommend trying to find the bright side of the opportunities. Our semesters are very long. There's a lot of opportunities to bring the grades such back up, but there's learning that occurs in that struggle. And when students leave Chatham High School, if they're able to cope with those setbacks, they'll find more success when they leave. So it's a focal point for us for sure. I mentioned before, one of the things that we talked about was courses during our curriculum night, and it's really important as you go through high school that we want kids to challenge themselves. We want them to challenge themselves appropriately. We want them to find a rigor that keeps them moving forward. But we also have to make sure that we're keeping in mind balance. That, as I mentioned, there's other activities that students are involved in, and they are important, whether that's clubs, whether that's athletics, whether that's after-school commitments and such. We want to keep a healthy balance, so just keeping that in mind of finding the balance between the rigor of your course load and the other engagement that you're in, that equals a much more positive experience. What we find over the years, and our counselors can speak to this, is that what goes a long way in terms of leaving Chatham High School, and many times we hear this when we speak with like college admissions reps or other organizations where kids are moving to, is having a transcript or a rigor that stays here the whole time and you do well. Of course, that's positive, but they put a lot of value in seeing growth over time, sustained improvement over time. That actually carries a lot of weight. Being involved in activities is also an important aspect to show that you're well-rounded, and it's really great for kids. This is where they find their fun. This is where they make their social connections, where they find their passions. But it's not necessary to load those up. One of the things that we hear over and over again is that when a student is looked at who has a few things that they show that they're really passionate about and they sustain those few things over time, that carries a lot of weight for the organizations that recruit outside of Chatham High School versus the student that puts their hands in 100 different pots and then has a hard time managing that. So I think it's an important point, something I did want to share, something I try to manage with my own children as well. Grades are important. Grades are definitely something that is a focal point in a high school. We do grade by semester here at the high school. So there is a marking period 1, 2, 3, and 4, semester 1, semester 2. We started that a number of years ago. It was an internal discussion. We had committees that worked on that, and we just found that it created more space, more time, and didn't force assessments and things like that to be forced in to complete a marking period in 10 weeks and have it spaced out over 20 weeks. We also saw that there was really no significant change in grades if you took a year year's worth of grades and broke them into 4 quarters or a semester. But we did find that it spaced things out and had a better impact on students. So we do have an open grade book. It's available for parents and students to view, just like you have now at the middle school. And I can tell you as an administrator and as a parent, there's pros and cons to it, for sure. It's wonderful to be able to get a glimpse of where your child is, how they're progressing. Students check it as well. But there is definitely a lot of opportunities where I see students perseverating on that grade book. One test was had and they're in class hitting refresh on the grade book all day, waiting to see that grade come in. That's something that we try to work on students with, is patience with that. Where we also have to take note of, it is a semester. And so there's a lot of points in a semester. And sometimes one assignment that was 6 out of 10 points, that averages as a 60, and if there's nothing else in the grade book, if you have a 60 average, that can create a lot of stress. But at the end of that semester, there could be 300 points in that grade book, and then that 6 out of 10 is really a small blip in the grade. So just helping work with your child to have patience and see the bigger picture, and recognize that there's time and opportunity to move forward, and to keep that in mind, especially when looking at the grade book. So I kind of mentioned this before, interest, I can't stress it enough. When students come into high school and they can find ways to stimulate their interests, things they can get involved with, it does develop it has a positive influence on all students. It also helps develop with social connections and such. And so we'll put a lot of effort in to help kids find a chance to get involved. That will be whether it's we have a giant activities fair in the very beginning of the school year outside, where all the upperclassmen students who are officers of the club set up tables, and during lunch they can go out and they can learn about each of the clubs and activities that exist and get a chance to sign up and learn about them, and it's very inviting. They pass out candy to draw the kids into the tables, and that usually works. And they'll get a chance to explore clubs that way. We have opportunities, obviously, in our athletic programs, which you'll hear a little bit more about, and as well as in our music and theater programs. That's not just limited to band, orchestra, chorus, theater. We also have our thriving stage crew that works with all of our performances here. So there's a lot of ways to kind of find your niche, and we will help guide that, whether it's through teachers who refer kids to these opportunities, administrators, counselors. It's a big part of what we do. So communication, I think, is an area of focus that is really where we see a transition in high school. And it's something, as a parent, as myself, with my own children, and parents in general, counselors, teachers, the transition we're trying to accomplish in high school with students who come in is for them to develop their own self-advocacy skills, for them to be able to take the lead on communicating. So if there's a question or a concern or something related to a class, that we have students speaking to their teachers, reaching out to their teachers, having the students send those emails. Now, we support this, and my advice for you for supporting that is you can help them construct those messages. Our counselors can help them construct those messages, but having them get used to asking the questions first, advocating for themselves first, is really where we want to get, because that's what's really going to prepare them for when they move. It's a little harder in 9th grade, it becomes a lot easier in 12th grade, but that is definitely something to consider, that having them, even if there's something that comes up where your first step is to send an email about it, and I'm not saying don't communicate with teachers at all, but if there's an opportunity for the student to take the lead on those questions or to go make an appointment to see their teacher, that's where we want to get them. So sometimes I know in middle school it's hard to imagine that they're there yet, but they do get there, and so that is definitely a goal. Another thing that I wanted to point out, and it's a lesson that I've learned myself, is that there are going to be things that come up that you have questions about, there's questions about, there's concerns about. Maybe there's something in a class that doesn't seem right, and we want to know more about that. What I can tell you without certainty is our teachers are incredibly responsive and do want to have an open dialogue. What I have found over the years in working with teenagers and raising my own children is that there are times, without a doubt, where there might be a mistake, teachers did something wrong. There are times where teachers do something that they realize after the fact they probably shouldn't have done. And there are times where teachers do something that I don't necessarily agree with, and I have to help them frame it a different way. But there are also many times in working with teenagers when they will bring something where it's negative, a negative experience, and they have a tendency to maybe not provide all the information about, what exactly happened. And there's more to the story. I can tell you an example I just had recently with my own son. I was at the end of the school day, and I came back to my office, and I had 4 missed calls on my cell phone from one of my sons who's in middle school. Now, I was frozen by that because, first of all, I didn't know that he knew cell phones could actually make phone calls. I thought that he only thought that they text messaged and Snapchat and stuff, and that he actually thought somebody would pick it up. And so I got nervous, and so I called him back, and he immediately got on the phone with me and started to tell me for about 1 minute and 30 seconds all the things that his teacher or adults around him did wrong. He said, "Dad, my history teacher, she wasn't here, we didn't know, we had a sub, no one told her this, they changed this, they did that," started telling me on and on. I said, "Ryan," after about 1 minute, I said, "Why are you calling me? What's the problem?" He says, "I missed the bus." So, we have a tendency to make ourselves the hero in stories, and so there's no question that happens at times. So, in many of the things that we work through, students will, always want to try to put themselves in the best foot forward, as they should, but we sometimes have to investigate a little bit farther. So the reason I'm telling this story is what I find to be the most effective and the best at problem solving is just approaching any type of communication with questions. Just don't assume that whatever you know or think you know is the whole picture. And I just find that whenever we approach them with questions, and I do this with teachers, I do this with students, that it becomes a more fulfilled dialogue. And so leading with questions and then coming to a resolution, I just think is a really productive way. And so I just wanted to share that piece of advice because I'm finding that to be helpful myself, especially with my own high school son as he navigates that process. And he is not a student here at the high school. Having his father as the principal of the high school was not an option for him. Those were his words. I kind of mentioned before, seeking assistance. Our teachers are incredibly accessible. They are incredibly professional. It's one of the reasons I'm here remaining 12 years. I haven't worked with the staff so intelligent, so empathetic, so just willing to do whatever it takes to meet kids where they need to be. And so they do make themselves available. They don't have in their contract a lot of designated extra help time. They just do it. They make themselves available during lunch. They make themselves available during prep periods if students have study halls. Some of them will be in before school. They'll be after school. They'll do whatever it takes. So we want to work with our students to be able to take advantage of those things. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of intelligence by not having intelligence by asking for help. Sometimes students, especially freshman students, feel that way. They're nervous. And so we want to work with that. So again, encouraging your child to do that, but working with us if there's reluctance to do it. Working with your counselor, who will be your counselor for 4 years. Counselors can meet with students. They can help them with the language of asking for assistance, help them find out exactly when their teachers are available, help them craft the emails. So it's definitely something that we want to try to foster because it pays dividends down the road. So my last slide here before I turn it over is there is a lot of supports here at Chatham High School. And your child will have access to these supports. It really does start with the classroom teacher, and then it kind of builds from there. You'll have a counselor assigned, that'll be your counselor for 4 years of high school. We keep families together the whole way through. We do have a college and career counselor who also works with, helps with standardized testing, so that person is available for all students, for all post-high school planning, and along with the counselor. We have a student assistance counselor here at the high school who is a sort of a tier 2 counselor for kids who need more regular check-ins, a little bit of therapeutic counseling. There's also a certified drug and alcohol counselor, and that's counselors available for all students, and we'll see any student who wants to see them one time, multiple times, on an ongoing time, whatever's necessary. We have a child study team for our special education students, 5 members of our child study team here at the high school, 2 psychologists, 2 LDTCs, that's learning disability teacher consultant, and 1 social worker. We have a Tier 3 counseling program called Aspire, which consists of 2 mental health clinicians, and also we have a designated classroom space that has a counselor in it currently right now, and that's for students who are maybe struggling with school avoidance or struggling to come back to school or transitioning out from some sort of care program and need sort of that intermediary to coming back into the classroom where they're able to work within that classroom space on a home instruction scenario, receive some counseling, and move them back in. So it's for a small number of students each year, but we do have this level of support to make sure that every single student in our school feels comfortable coming to school and is able to transition well and thrive. We have 2 nurses at the high school, and then of course we have our supervisors, assistant principals, principals. When it comes to questions about instruction, it would be the teacher to reach out to first, and then supervisors, principals from there. If it's about athletics, speaking to coaches, athletic director, there are communication protocols, and we'll share all that with you before school starts. But these are all the individuals that are available. Security, we have 2 Class 3 police officers in the building. They work for the Township Police Department, and then we also have Mr. Tomeno, who is a retired police sergeant who's a security. So they help us manage the building, and Mr. Tomeno also helps us site manage at athletic events. Okay, so I hit you with a lot, but I'm going to turn it over now to Lori Geronda and then Connor Henderson to kind of go into the nuts and bolts of the student experience at Chatham High School, okay? Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and I'm going to be sharing with you some of the practical information that I shared with the 8th graders when they came for their visit today. Things, what to expect, a day in the life of a Chatham High School student, what our schedule is like, class schedule, lunch, study, etc. So first off, our day begins at 8:20, which obviously is a little bit later than what the students are experiencing now at CMS, and our day does go until 3 o'clock. I would recommend, we're a school in the middle of a neighborhood really, so driving your children to school, you are going to want to head up Lafayette Avenue relatively early. The traffic does back up onto Lafayette. We will be sending you information or sharing information over the summer regarding the drop-off procedures and everything, so please take a look for that. You can also see here our half-day hours, delayed opening hours, but all of our schedules are found on our website online. Our schedule is similar to CMS, but a little bit different than CMS. We do have a 4-day rotating schedule, but different than CMS, one of the morning classes and one of the afternoon classes drop out each day. So at CMS, students see all 8 of their classes every day. At CHS, our students only see 6 classes every day. So you can see this is sort of how it lays out. 3 classes in the morning that are 55 minutes in length, then our common lunch where the entire school eats at once, and then 3 classes, 55 minutes in length in the afternoon. Our lunch period is 54 minutes long, which is pretty much twice as long as what the students have now at CMS, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well and what that means. This is what a schedule would look like filled in for a typical freshman schedule. As you can see, the periods rotate, so the student is not meeting with the same class at the same time every day, and they only see each class 3 times out of every 4 days. A couple of things that I want to point out here. One would be for science. So if you take a look at day 3 on that schedule, you see that the biology class is the last class in the morning that butts right up to the lunch period. That would be the lab day for that student. So all of our science classes are lab classes. Once out of each 4-day rotation, students spend an extra 26 or 27 minutes in their science class, and that is the lab day. That lab day takes place any day, the day in the rotation when the science class is either right before lunch or right after lunch. In this case, the student would report to their biology class, third block in the morning. They go through the 55 minutes. The bell rings for lunch, but that student stays in class. About halfway through the 54-minute lunch period, another bell rings, and then they're dismissed from lab and they go to have lunch for the remaining 27 minutes. If the student has science class after the lunch period, they're listening for that bell in the middle of lunch, and that's their cue to leave lunch and then go to their science class. Their teachers will talk to them a little bit more about that, and any of the procedures that they need to know for the labs. Another part of the schedule that I wanted to point out is study hall. Probably about 80% of our students have a study hall in their schedule. And in this particular schedule, you can see on day one, the study hall falls into the last block of the day. If a study hall, on the day that a study hall falls into the first block or the last block of the day, the student does not need to be there for that study. So in this case, on day one, the student would be permitted to leave at about 2 o'clock, which is the beginning of the last block of the day. They don't need to be here for that. They can leave and go home. If they had study hall first block of the day, they don't need to be here for the first block. They can come in late and just arrive for the second block. Now, importantly, for freshmen, they need your permission in order to do that, and permission is granted by signing a form in the parent portal. So I'm sure your students will want you to do that. If you think it's appropriate for your student, please make sure that you take a look in the parent portal for that form and fill that out. A little bit more about study hall. Our study halls are not in classrooms, they are in large spaces, and the number of students in the study halls is pretty large. Students have a couple of choices, though, of what they can do. They can report to the cafeteria, or they can report directly to the media center. They can also report to places like our test makeup room, which we have available for students who maybe were absent and missed an assessment. They can take that assessment, make it up during their study hall. They can also, if a teacher is available, get extra help during that time. They can see a school counselor during that time. There are many things that they can do. One thing, though, that is important, your student at this point probably has a school ID that they've gotten from middle school. If they have that, it's a great idea to take a picture of the barcode on that, because when they go to study hall, or they sign in late to the office, or they go to the nurse, or they go to school counseling, they will be scanning in and using that barcode. If they don't have it, it's okay. They can do it using the student portal as well. There's a QR code there that they will find, but just something to think about. In terms of our common lunch, again, this is 54 minutes long, and as you know, it never takes a 14-year-old 54 minutes to eat. What we find is, especially in the beginning of the year, the freshmen come in, they get their lunch, they eat it in about 10 minutes, and then they spend the time walking around the building because they don't really know what to do with themselves. So what we encourage them to do is kind of take their time. They can maybe get a little bit of work done in the beginning. They don't have to rush right to the lunch line. But we also have some other things that go on during lunch, such as our club meetings. Our clubs meet during lunch. Teachers, will be available for extra help during lunch. Students can go to the library. They can go to a number of other places as well that I'll talk about in a moment. Our food provider is Pontonian, just like it is at CMS. Feedback from the students is that the food is pretty good, and we do use PaySchool Central for the lunch accounts, just like they do at CMS. Again, our science labs also come out of the common lunch. So some other things that students can do during this 54-minute lunch period. Of course, we've got the media center. We have our computer labs, which some of them are available. We've got the test makeup room, if a student wants to make up a test. We have an outdoor eating area, which we use mostly during the first and fourth quarter of the year when the weather is nice. We have a rest and relaxation room, which is kind of a quiet space where there's meditative music that plays, and sometimes we have programming that goes on in there run by our counseling department. We have art rooms, technology rooms that are open, and also, as I mentioned, our club meetings take place during lunch. And this is really a benefit because if students want to be involved in after-school activities, whether it's work or athletics or even taking care of a younger sibling, there's no conflict with being able to be involved in clubs because they can do that during the school day. I'm going to pass the mic over now to Connor Henderson to talk a little bit about our methods of communication.
All right, thank you all for being here. So I shared this information, as we all did, with the students earlier. There are many similarities that they'll find between their transition from middle school to high school, and then I'll highlight some of the key changes within the transition. One thing that will remain the same will be the mass messages that come from the school or the district, right? Any parent or guardian who has their contact information available in Genesis will continue to receive messages through email or even text message from the school or from the district. We also will continue to use the Genesis Parent Portal, which is where the Open Gradebook can be accessed, and that's also where you can check your child's attendance and then enter any notes for absences or tardies. The high school website, I'm sure, is similar to the middle school website, and I will on the next slide highlight some of the key aspects of our website because there is a lot of information on there that the students should familiarize themselves with. They have plenty of time to do that. But one of the key differences is Schoology. Schoology is our learning management system. Right now, the students in middle school are using Google Classroom as their learning management system, and here we use Schoology. And I think that they'll find that Schoology is very appropriate for high school age students. There's a lot that you can do with that program, and we integrate that for courses and clubs. Sometimes students are a little bit nervous about a change like that. I can assure you that there's a lot of time spent covering how to use Schoology, kind of what the expectations are, and I'll show you what that looks like tonight. But during the first week, I go into every 9th grade phys ed class. I bring them into the library and then give them about an hour-long tutorial about how to use Schoology and answer questions for them. And their 9th grade teachers, obviously set expectations and cover that for them as well. And then finally, email. So they have access to email in middle school, and I'm sure that they use it. What I explained to them today is that in high school, you're expected to check your email. We recommend 1 to 2 times a day, maybe once during school and then once after school. But that really is the way that teachers will communicate with them individually. They may get mass messages from the administration to their email. There may be Schoology posts from the teacher to the entire class or to the entire grade. But if someone is going to contact them individually, they're going to email the student. And they are expected to read it and respond. And just to build off of Dr. Walker's message about really building that self-advocacy and just building the skills to craft an email or ask a question, I emphasized with the students this morning the importance of the email coming from them. And I have conversations with teachers along similar lines, right? Sometimes I'll talk with a teacher and say, okay, I think you should contact the student and have a conversation about it, or I think that you should contact the parent, and then if it needs to be escalated, I'm happy to get involved. And I think you as a parent are in a similar situation, right? Encourage your child to reach out to the teacher, take that next step, and if it needs to be escalated, that's where we can all get involved to support, because ultimately we're all working towards the same goal, right? Which is to support your child and for their long-term success. In terms of the high school website, what you can find here, and I'll highlight some of the key aspects. Our news and announcements will have information about upcoming events, as well as our calendar. Our counseling tab, you'll utilize that in different ways as your child progresses throughout high school, but we do have our program of studies there, so around scheduling time, that'll be a place you'll definitely want to visit. And then we also have a 4-year kind of roadmap or a 4-year plan that kind of sets appropriate goals or really what the student should be focusing on throughout each year of high school. And I can assure you, fall or freshman year, it is not focusing on college as they are just transitioning right into college, right into high school. They have plenty of time for that. The athletics section, I will highlight athletics towards the end of my slides because that is one of the only things that fall athletics that actually begins before the school year does. So if your child is interested in athletics, you can find on that site all of the available sports, kind of what levels are offered, some of the important deadlines. You can also find sports schedules on there. And then our clubs and activities section is simply a list of the clubs that are offered. We use Schoology for the actual daily operations of each club, similar to their courses. And then finally, the student handbook is available on the website, which I encourage the students to read. I'm sure they'll all get to it tonight. But I said you definitely want to know what the policies are, what the expectations are. And I highlighted 2 key things, grading and attendance. What I explained to them is that one significant change from middle school to high school is that attendance counts towards earning credit, for graduation. And there are 2 things that you need to do to earn credit. One, which everyone is aware of, is earn a 60% or higher. You have to earn a passing grade, and that's typically common knowledge. What most coming into high school don't know is that you also have to hit a 90% seat time. You have to be present for that class for 90% of the classes in order to earn credit, and you need to meet both criteria. So it's very important to come to school every day, to attend classes, to minimize absences, and then when you're sick, to provide any medical documentation that you have. In terms of what you can do as a parent, documenting absences in the parent portal is necessary. And that's similar to if you're sick and you're not going to work, there's a way that you notify your employer, and for us, for your student, that would be entering a note in the parent portal. But it is important to understand that the absences still count, right? So when my daughter is sick with a cold, I'll enter a note saying, homesick today, and maybe she's out for a day or 2 and returns. Those days for a high school student still count as accumulated absences, even though I entered a note in the parent portal indicating that they were home and they were sick and I was giving them permission to stay home. They still count, right, towards their total number of absences. There are, of course, extenuating circumstances and a small number of students with medical emergencies or medical conditions, and for those students and families, we work with them and look at medical documentation. College visits, state-approved religious holidays. There are always unique circumstances or absences that may be exempt, but in general, one change from the middle school to the high school is that absences, regular sick days, they all count. So it's an important distinction, and we'll cover all of the details with the students, and very, very, very few students, I will say, actually get to that point of credit loss through attendance. Okay, in terms of instructional technology, students use Chromebooks in the middle school. They'll continue to use Chromebooks at the high school. Next year, students will be required to use their Chromebooks throughout the high school and the district. They won't be bringing any personal devices. But as we have found over the years, almost every student prefers to bring their Chromebook and is really comfortable doing that anyway. The building has wireless access, including the outdoor patio that Mrs. Gironda mentioned earlier. We have smart boards in every classroom. We'll continue to use Google Apps, which the students are familiar with from the middle school. And then again, just highlighting that change would be Schoology, the learning management system. And this is what Schoology looks like. This is a course page that I pulled an updated screenshot from a course page today. And this is, I picked financial literacy because this is a graduation requirement. So this is a course that every student will take. And our teachers put a great deal of effort, they put a lot of time into organizing their page to really help the students and help them stay organized and see the connection between the content that they're learning each day. So our teachers organize their folders by units. So you can see Unit 1 is budgeting, right? How to keep a budget. All of the resources that are used for that lesson, so the videos, the articles, the slideshows that are used in class, will be uploaded underneath that folder. Their homework, their classwork, and then possibly any online assessments will also be loaded under that folder, which is really helpful for students when they're preparing for that end of unit, test, quiz, or project, because they open the unit and they see everything that they've learned in sequential order laid out for them. It's really a big step from me as a student rummaging through my backpack trying to collect my notes and put them in order and find ways to study. They do a lot for the students in terms of organizing it for them, which is why you can also understand the gut punch that teachers feel when a student comes in and says, "Did we do anything yesterday? I was out. Did we do anything?" It's all in Schoology. It's all there, including their upcoming assignments. So you can see these students have homework that's due tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, they have a virtual business assignment, and that appears on the right side of the screen for them. Schoology also has a calendar. Our students live by this feature. They check it on a daily basis, multiple times a day, because this is really their to-do list, right? All assignments from all 7 or 8 classes will pull to this master calendar, along with any school updates or events, like you'll see junior prom there for April 18th, and the rotation day, okay? Then from there, they can click on any item that's listed in the calendar that would open up that item and take them to the assignment. So they know exactly what is expected of them. Their homework and teachers are required to post all assignments in Schoology so that it appears in the calendar. So this is a really helpful feature for them. And we really emphasize this. The kids love it. They say this is their favorite aspect of Schoology. In terms of clubs and activities, what I focused on this morning with the students is not covering each individual club, because right now that doesn't matter and I know that they're not going to remember it. What I wanted them to take away was that high school is more than just the classroom, and it's more than just the academic work from 8:20 to 3 o'clock. High school is a 4-year experience. They're going to make lifelong friendships. They're going to have meaningful experiences. And clubs are a great way to get connected to people who have a similar interest. It's a great way to break out and meet people even outside of their grade. They'll come into the high school and think that upperclassmen are scary and may not want to talk to them. And then they go to their first club meeting and they're welcomed by the seniors, the president of the club. They're welcomed at that club meeting. Because what I tell the students is that our kids are so passionate about their clubs, they want to see it grow. They're happy when a 9th grader walks into the club meeting because that shows growth. That's good for the club. So regardless of what they get involved in, we want them to find something in those first few months. And we spend time, I spend time even during the Schoology session going through the list of clubs with them so that they can all find something they're interested in. And just again, as Mrs. Granda highlighted, club meetings take place during lunch. So the after-school commitments are not a conflict for any kid who wants to be a performer, be an athlete, have a job, and still join multiple clubs. You can do it all because of that 55-minute lunch and the fact that our clubs meet during lunch. Okay, finally I'm going to highlight, again, athletics, because for those fall athletes, so you can see the sports are listed. The fall is on the left side column. If your child is interested in playing a fall sport, you have a little bit of work to do in June to ensure, and over the summer, to ensure that they are eligible to participate in August. Fall sports begin before school starts, okay? But if you just look at the rest of the list, we offer 36 sports, which is a lot for a high school. I don't know many high schools who offer as many sports. Freshman, JV, varsity, we also have intramural sports. Some of these sports have to make cuts just to limit roster sizes, and some are able to hold a large roster and don't have to make cuts depending on how many students come out. It really depends on the sport and that season and the interest. Okay? Before our fall athletes, fall sports football begins on August 12th, as well as girls tennis. Those two sports begin on August 12th, and the state sets the start date and end date for all of the sports seasons. So we just work off of their guidelines. And then all other fall sports begin on August 19th. In order for student athletes to be eligible to try out for a sport, one, their parent needs to sign off on all of the forms in the athletics tab, and those forms will be uploaded to the athletics tab in June. So you can actually do that before the school year ends. Go through and just sign off on all of those forms. And then they also need to submit the medical clearance paperwork, which includes a physical from a doctor. All of that needs to be submitted by August 1st. And that paperwork can come to the high school and gets approved by the nurse. So you have plenty of time to work on that, but it's just an important thing to highlight, again, because that begins before we'll actually see the students on August. It's the first day of school next year. August 26th, that's what I thought, but I second guessed myself. Okay, all right, thank you very much. I'm going to pass it back off to Dr. Walker. But thank you again for coming out. Have a great evening.
Okay, so last couple things before I move on to the panel, and then we wrap it up for tonight. Schedules, so your children had requested courses. We came down to the middle school, we met with them, we finalized those requests, and we have completed building the master schedule, so it is done. Right now, it is with the counselors at the high school who will go through and resolve any conflicts that exist in the schedule. What I mean by conflicts is sometimes students request an elective, 2 electives that are offered in the same period. It's the only time they're offered, and they have to make a choice between one or the other and pick an alternative, things like that. We don't have too many of them. We had a really nice schedule build this year. But we are going through that process. So for the current 8th graders coming up, the counselors start with the seniors and work down. Some of them, I think, are about ready to start with the current 8th graders. What will happen is if your child does have a conflict, and there aren't too many conflicts in grade 9, but occasionally it does happen, then the counselors may be reaching out to you to discuss maybe what the options are in terms of a change. You'll always get the core courses. This is really about electives. An example, sometimes if a student is, say, in band and orchestra, and they request another elective that's a singleton, that's only offered 1 period, and it conflicts at the same period, they might have to pick something else to pair with band or orchestra, those types of things. But we're on track to be able to have schedules done by the first week of June, right after Memorial Day weekend. What will happen is we will, once we know they're done, we'll turn them on in the portal, and then we'll let you know that they're on, and students know, and that's for the whole school, the whole high school. And then you'll be able to go in and you'll be able to see the schedules. On that schedule, you'll also have the name of your counselor listed there, and that will be your point of contact regarding any questions regarding the schedule or courses and such, and things like that moving forward. If there are any questions or concerns or changes, we can process them pretty much all the way up to the beginning of school. So all the counselors are in until the last day of school, and then for the remainder of the summer, we have a counselor in every week. Not every day of every week, but every week, a couple of the days, there's at least 1 or 2 counselors in, and those counselors can help anybody. So it may not be your child's counselor, but if you need to, address something, we can create an appointment or a conversation and connect you, and they can help you with those things. But when you get the schedule, we obviously double, triple check every student. Every counselor checks their students, but just make sure that there is a course in every period. if you requested a study hall, you'll see the study hall, and please let us know if there's any questions or concerns. So as I mentioned, we do have 2 secretaries in the counseling office that are both 12-month, full-time, so they are available all summer long and during the school year, and they'll be able to help you, especially after school ends, with any questions or regarding schedules and courses and things like that, or if you just want to talk to your counselor if they're in, or a high school counselor in particular. As Mr. Henderson mentioned, the 2 summer reading assignments I gave to the students today was the student handbook and our program of studies, which they should have looked at the program of studies already a bit when they were selecting courses. But the student handbook, right now we have this year's handbook. We will be publishing next year's handbook. Usually not a lot of changes from year to year, but it's really nice for them to get an idea on policies. When am I allowed to make a schedule change until? If I decide I want to drop a level from an honors to a level A course, what's the deadline of when I can do that by? Things like that, the attendance policy, how many absences am I allowed to have in a class, which is 16 in a full year class, or how many in a semester class, which is just a really good resource to be able to understand, those policies, so they don't surprise you when you decide you want to initiate one of them. So again, the acclimation, we spent a lot of time to make sure when they walk in this building that they are ready and they are going to have a positive experience. So we will have our class meeting on the first day of school. We will also have our activities fair. And then about 10 weeks into school, like after what would have been the first marking period, our counselors will host all of their 9th graders for individual meetings. They'll schedule it, they'll get a block of time, they come down, and the counselors get a chance to meet the students, to spend some time with them, to see how their transition's going. And we do it purposely about 10, in that second marking period, because we want them to have had some experience here, to have gone through their classes, to have some exposure, so that they have things they can talk about. What is their favorite class? What are they struggling with? What are their interests? It's like really a chance for them to get to know each other, and for the counselors to try to get some really good feedback. Around that time, they're also going to send each of their families a form, like an online survey form. It's confidential between the counselor and the family, to allow parents to share anything that they would like to share about your child that maybe be good for a counselor to know, something important. So that we do that, but along the way, they're always available. They're your point of contact if you want to reach out to them to let them know anything about your child or to talk through anything that's going on, and the students can go see them at any time. Okay, we had our PTO who went first, so now, last but not least, I'd like to introduce our panel. If you guys please come up. Every year when we do our presentation, we typically invite 1 or 2 parents who recently had a child go through this process, and a couple of our students to kind of give their perspective on the transition to high school. Hopefully they'll confirm everything I've been telling you isn't a lie, and that these things actually happen here. But let me introduce Emmett, Emily, and Mrs. Budkowski.
Hi there, I'm Emmett Stetley, a freshman year at Chatham High School. I spent most of my school years in Chatham, but before 3rd grade I lived in Baltimore City. It didn't really hit me that I'd be the smallest in this big school until probably a month before my freshman year. I became intimidated by the fact that I'd be going from the big kid in the hallways to back to a little pipsqueak. Would the upperclassmen pick on me, push me around? I couldn't have been more wrong. Through programs like Links, where we could ask questions about the ins and outs of the school, the upperclassmen couldn't have been more helpful. I'm really grateful for them mentoring me during this freshman year, and can't wait to return the favor to incoming freshmen next year, and I'm sure lots of other current freshmen feel the same. After you get past the first week of learning how to get around the school and memorizing your schedule, it's a breeze. I really couldn't have asked for more of a better transition. Looking back on 8th grade, I think the teachers did a really good job preparing us for the workload and studying would be like in high school, without us even realizing it at the time. I'm a mostly A-class level student, so I can give a good perspective on what many students here at CHS will be experiencing as far as academics go. It is important to learn how to advocate for yourself. You have to find motivation to study and do homework at home, even after a long day. If there's something I wish I had known before entering high school, it's the importance of starting your study the day a test is announced. There are many reasons behind this. One is cramming the day before a test might give you the knowledge for the test the next day, but there are so many units in every class that require mastery of the material from a previous unit, so it's not a good way to go about things. Another reason is that you can't really get away with not studying in high school. I mean, I went down that road, and let's just say it wasn't a good start to my high school career. I think it's important to take one study hall period for the full year, especially as a full-year sports player. Sometimes you get home late, or whatever the reason is, a study period is a great way to study and catch up on your homework. This year, I took graphic design and business 101. Graphic design was lots of fun and an enjoyable class, especially if you're not as good at painting or drawing. Business 101 was a very hard class in my opinion to take as a freshman. It required lots of math skills and studying, but it also taught me lots of real world things such as basics of accounting, managing a business, and other aspects of that. As far as my core classes go, like history, biology, and others, you will quickly come to realize that some classes require different ways of studying than others. Some focus on material in the textbook, others focus on more of teachers' notes or other sources. One of my favorite things about coming into high school is all the new clubs and sports I can participate in within the school. I did Key Club, which gave me a variety of different volunteer opportunities. I also did Ski Club, which if your kid loves to ski, it's a perfect club for them. I did it with my friends and we went on 5 trips to Mountain Creek on Friday nights after school. I also did the Athlete Alliance Club, where about once a month lower classmen could sit and ask questions to upperclassmen about balancing sports and school. I played freshman soccer in the fall, which was lots of fun for my first school sport. However, you sacrifice a lot of your time to play. Like most school sports, you have practice every day after school, with games built in. In the winter, I played club soccer outside of school. In the spring, I also played club soccer. Through all this soccer, I started to realize the importance of playing a variety of sports, and I tried out for volleyball even though I'd never played, and I made it. The coaches made it lots of fun and make sure that I learned quickly, and it was a great experience. During all these activities, I found it hard to get my work done. A big trade-off for playing all these sports and doing clubs was that I found myself up late at night completing schoolwork, reiterating on why I think it's very important to take a study hall, especially as an athlete. I had to learn to pace myself in the days leading up to a test. High school isn't all about sports and academics. You build lifelong friendships with new people, older and younger. I was very grateful to go into high school with a close group of friends. However, this year we received a large group of new kids from all over. Different countries, states, schools. I got to make friends with people whose English went from, hello, how are you, to being able to fully communicate with students who didn't even speak the same language as me before. And I just think that's one of the coolest things ever. After all this, I hope you can just take away that high school isn't all about academics. There are so many opportunities to make your experience great. That's it, and I hope I was able to give you some insightful input on the next 4 years of your kid's life will look like.
Thank you, Emmett. Benjamin Franklin once wisely stated, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." Good evening, my name is Emily Deutsch, and I am pleased to have the opportunity to share, as a current freshman, my high school transition experience. I hope what I share with you will help your incoming freshmen be as prepared as possible for their upcoming high school careers. As is usually the case when starting a new school in a different building, I was initially very apprehensive about finding my way around. Many forewarned me of the dreaded vortex, an area of the building where 4 hallways converge into one space and typically gets really crowded. This fueled my nervousness even more. However, after visiting the school during one of the summer tour days offered, my anxieties were quickly put to ease when I saw for myself how straightforward the building is, with its ample signage and most subject classrooms categorized in the same area. For example, math classes are usually in the D wing and science classes in the C wing. I felt equipped for the first day of school after my summer visit, but rest assured, if for some reason your incoming freshman cannot do this run-through, know that plenty of administrators are available to direct your student, especially during the first week of school. One immediate change I noticed at CHS is the shift from Google Classroom to Schoology. Middle schoolers are familiar with Google Classroom as a platform to find class resources and turn in assignments. Schoology serves the same purpose, but looks different with its calendar feature, for example, that allows you to color code your classes and helps you to stay on top of important due dates. Personally, I appreciate and prefer Schoology for its adaptability and ease of use. In addition, CHS runs its classes on a drop schedule, where 2 classes are dropped each day, allowing for longer class periods. Classes are 55 minutes versus the 43-minute long periods at the middle school, enabling teachers to cover more material. The drop schedule also gives students more cushion with completing tasks. If you drop math tomorrow, for example, and have a quiz in the next math class, you have that one extra day to study. I find this extremely helpful, especially when learning to manage your school workload. Lunch also looks very different at the high school. It is 50 minutes long, plenty of time to eat and socialize. Students can use the freedom at this time to meet with teachers, go to the library, R&R room, or outside patio area. Every student's workload will vary depending on the track he or she decides to take. I am on the All Honors track and plan on taking an AP course next year. I thoroughly enjoy the level of my classes, but, full transparency, they are far more challenging and demanding than in middle school. In Honors US History 1, for example, there's textbook reading and corresponding notes almost every night. And my Honors Biology and Honors Algebra 1 classes are very fast-paced, with a lot of information covered in one class period. There is a heavy concentration on reading analysis in Honors ELA, so I often have multiple pages of reading and in-depth writing assignments for focusing on literary concepts. Again, the drop schedule comes in handy here, but more importantly, I quickly realized this year the significance of responsibility, discipline, and self-advocacy. One particular challenge I faced was finding the right academic, athletic, social balance. I play field hockey for the high school in the fall and my club team year-round. For the high school team, there is practice after school every day unless there is a game. Depending on the schedule, there can be 1, 2, or 3 games per week, and away games naturally mean a later home arrival time. There were a couple of instances at first where I struggled to complete my academic tasks in season and stayed up later than I had hoped. But after some trial and error, I developed a system that worked well for me. Utilizing my elected study hall and lunch periods to study and complete assignments, opening up the line of communication with my teachers, coaches, and counselor, prioritizing which tasks to tackle first, and learning to plan ahead. Reserving the weekends for social activities also became a non-negotiable. The challenge of striking an academic, athletic, social balance was not insurmountable, time management being key, and I'm grateful that I had the honor of experiencing a warm sense of camaraderie and school spirit by playing on the high school team. This definitely enhanced my freshman experience. What I appreciate most about high school is how you can tailor your class schedule and involvement based on your interests. CHS offers electives from almost every field of study, allowing students to explore what appeals to them. I, for one, am very intrigued by the world of business and was pleased to discover the plethora of business electives available. This semester, I am in Business 101, and so far this class has been a favorite of mine because it covers a vast range of business sectors such as economics, accounting, marketing, and finance. This gives me a sampling of the different business fields, helping me to find my focal point. Moreover, CHS is home to over 100 student-led clubs and programs. I joined Key Club, Homeless Solutions, French Club, and Future Business Leaders of America. Serving and being involved in the community is important to me, and both Key Club and Homeless Solutions enable me to do just that. My favorite experience with Key Club was serving as a waitress for the senior citizen dinner held after the high school play. With Homeless Solutions, I enjoyed spearheading a drive where we collected school supplies and donated them to the homeless shelter in Morristown. Being in high school has given me the foundation to develop my leadership skills and the confidence to bring my ideas to life. I, for example, founded an organization called the Volunteer Tutoring Program, where Chatham high schoolers will partner with students at Lafayette Avenue School to help them with their academic needs. After speaking with Assistant Principal Geronda, my counselor Mrs. Coolbear, and collaborating with Principal Russo at Lafayette Avenue School, I am happy to say that this program has been approved and will launch next school year. So here's my little plug. If any of you would be interested in joining, keep your eyes and ears open for announcements on the tutoring program come this fall. All in all, my transition to CHS has been seamless. Many thanks to the guidance and support of my teachers, coaches, administration, and peers. This is an exciting time for growth and development on all fronts, and I hope you all are looking forward to this next chapter.
Hi, my name is Lisa Bitkowski. I've been a Chatham resident for the past 25 years. I'm the mom of 2 boys here at Chatham High School, a senior and a freshman, with very different interests. One likes performing arts and the other likes sports. I thought about what to speak of and what I would have liked to have heard going back like 5 years ago now. Just try to give you some practical tips from my perspective, and then I also spoke with my sons to get their perspective on things too. I think the number one thing that students are most anxious about in transitioning from 8th grade to high school is finding their classes. All summer long you hear a lot of students and parents worry about finding the classes. I was very worried about finding the classes at Parents' Night. I think the school, they'll still do it. They give 1 or 2 days in August a chance for the students to visit the school and figure out where their classrooms are when they have their schedule. I suggest printing out a copy of the school map and the schedule, as well as having them on their phone, because the Wi-Fi isn't always great in the school. I made that mistake Parents' Night, and I didn't have a schedule and panicked. And both boys said it takes about a week to learn where classes are, so it's not horrendous. They'll adapt, they'll adjust very quickly. And if I can survive the Parents' Night, anyone can. I literally offered my husband cash to go instead of me, because I also had that anxiety. So I think the second item that students are most anxious about is needing to use the bathroom. That's something I'm concerned about in my daily life. So I spoke with the boys, and you can request a pass. Actually, you don't need a pass to go to the bathroom. You just ask to go from your teacher. They'll usually let you go. If you do travel other areas of the school, though, for example, my son said he left his water bottle in the cafeteria, you do need a pass for that, so you can't just roam around. But don't worry about using the bathroom. The third thing I think students get most anxious about is lunch. There's questions around lunch. Everyone, as was mentioned previously, everyone eats at the same time, and that's 11:15 in the morning, so it's pretty early. One of my sons brings their lunch, and the other usually buys it. They both said that they feel like there's plenty of time to eat lunch. The first couple days of school, they might want to bring their own, just till they find out how long the lines are, if they're going to buy it, and where they want to sit. And then on the lab days, the lunch time's reduced to 28 minutes, so they might want to bring their lunch on those days too to make it easier. Deli sandwiches can be pre-ordered up until 9 a.m. the same day. That's kind of exciting. And coffee and coffee drinks are available. I don't think they were available in middle school. That was kind of a surprise to us when we found these bottles in my older son's room. We thought he was buying them like at CVS or somewhere else. He was getting them at school. My older son does suggest go to the coffee instead of the coffee drinks, a lot less chemicals and sugar, and sometimes there's surprises. I know he's a nut allergy. Occasionally there's nut, in non-dairy beverages, there's sometimes cashew milk and things like that, so just to be aware of that. Students eat all over the place, in the cafeteria, in the gyms, outside of the auditorium, and usually they said it's in like interest cliques or friend groups. Parents can drop off lunches if they're forgotten, but delivery services aren't allowed, like DoorDash. Some differences for middle school. They have the later start time, which I think has been terrific. Their sleep cycle changes in high school. They start taking naps before dinner if they can, if they don't have activities, and staying up past midnight. The boys gradually stopped showering at night and started showering in the morning, creating hot water shortages in my house and ridiculously prolonged bathroom occupations. holding valuable objects hostage, toothbrushes, makeup, combs, you couldn't get at them. So that's a problem if everyone has to leave the house at the same time. And my advice to parents is beat them to the shower. That way you have the hot water and everything you need. It was previously mentioned, the students could come in late if their study hall is the first period, or leave early if it's the last period. That's something new. Almost no one uses lockers. They carry their books and coats from class to class. Many students, though, suffer from coat allergies, and they can only wear sweatshirts. The other side of that is, too, since they are carrying all their belongings with them, like nomads, they don't want a big, bulky coat, so that gets in the way. So that kind of makes sense. There's a mix of ages in the classes, which is different from middle school. And as was mentioned before, there are unexcused absences, and they can result in loss of course credit. And while it may seem absurd that your student can be out 16 days, by senior year, those days, they're sick a lot, they're run down, especially my older son who's in performing arts. He had hours and hours of rehearsal. Those kids are all together, they're all sick chronically, before the performance, after the performance, during the performance. So unfortunately, a lot of times kids are going to school sick because they don't want to lose that credit, you know, when they're not supposed to. If they have fevers, they have the flu. I don't really know what to do about that other than, you know, I did suggest wearing a mask, and that wasn't an option, apparently. You know, I said if you're very worried about getting sick before performance, you might want to do that. There's one central location for assignments, Schoology. I have trouble pronouncing that word. I like to call it Schoology, which I think is a lot easier to follow than middle school, where there might have been teacher websites and then there were different locations in middle school. This is much more streamlined and straightforward. Finally, some suggestions as a parent. I would urge students to advocate for themselves and email teachers the same day if they don't understand something. Don't wait. Most teachers have office hours upon request, and it prevents a lot of frustration and conflict at home. A lot of times we would try to help with homework. It would just end up in an argument and frustration. It worked much smoother if really literally that day they said, I don't understand something that was taught. And usually a teacher would respond and it would be resolved within 24 hours. And it was just much more peaceful. So I really suggest that. Give students a chance to complete assignments and study independently. Daily checking in middle school for one of my sons just seemed to make him less accountable and cause a lot of arguments at home, because Genesis wasn't always updated daily. So, you know, at least once a week I was screaming, why do you only have a 50 in algebra? Why do you have a 20 in English? It was just that it wasn't updated. Encourage students to join some of the many clubs. They showed a quick list up here. There's something for everyone, and I really think it helps them meet friends and feel part of a group. And meet different groups of friends. Don't just, you know, focus on sports, or don't just focus on performing arts, to diversify their friend groups and their interests. And reassure students that they can make new friends even if they don't know someone in a particular class. An excuse has been, I don't want to take that elective because none of my friends are in that. You know, even though it's an elective that they do have an interest in, that they like to explore, you know, they shy away from it because, you know, it's new. I would try to just encourage them to just not stay with what they know. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk and for inviting me. I hope it's helpful.
Thank you all very much. I didn't tell them what to say. I had no idea what they were going to say before they got up there. But thank you very much. It was really helpful. Okay, so just to wrap things up for our presentation, and you are free to come down if you'd like, instead of sitting there if you'd like. Thank you. Appreciate it. We do have an open house in the summer. So our open house is scheduled for Tuesday, August 13th. We will send information out about this. We scheduled it from 1 to 2:30, and it's a chance for the students to be able to have their finalized schedules by then. And Because like I mentioned, we'll make schedules available in June, and the courses you're in will be set. What can change over July when the portal closes are the periods the courses are in and the teachers, because what we do over the summer, there's a lot of schedule changes that occur, and then we go in and balance classes. Because sometimes you'll end up with, like, for example, an ninth grade English class that's got 24 kids in it and another section that has 12 because kids moved around, and then we balance those. So the periods and the teachers could change. So the real final schedule in terms of the periods and teachers will be in the very beginning of August, before August 13th, when the portal opens for the new school year. So August 13th, we'll have an open house where the students can come in with a printed copy of their schedule and they can walk the building, find their classes. Our upperclassmen students, our 11th, 12th graders, our links leaders will be stationed throughout the building to help them find their way. Parents, you're welcome to come as well. Some students come with their parents, some students, they come in groups of friends. It really doesn't matter. It's sort of a come as you go. It's not, you don't have to arrive at 1. You can come anytime between 1 and 2:30. Go through. We did clear with our athletic department to make sure that we don't have any practices or games or anything that conflicts with that. And that really would just be football and tennis at that time. And if you can't make that date, this high school is open all summer long. So anytime after schedules are available, you can come in and walk the building and find your classes. So that'll be happening. And other than that, there will be a summer mailing that gets sent out to you that lists a lot of the information you need to know about the start of school, and the portal will be opening. And I'm sure that was a lot, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody wants to bring any up right now, or we'll stick around for a little bit afterwards if you want to come up for a one-on-one. So, does anybody have any additional questions now they want to share? I'm sure you do, but you're afraid to ask them. Okay. Thank you so much for coming, and have a wonderful night. I look forward to seeing your kids in August.